Welcome back, everyone, to another episode. Today, we are speaking with Jeannette Ceja. Jeannette is an award winning bilingual travel journalist, television host, travel advisor, and global public speaker. She is the founder and CEO of JSWJ, which is Jet Set with Jeannette, and board member of Latina Professionals. Jeannette, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. And thank you for uplifting women's voices always, but also during Women's History Month. So thank you.
It is my pleasure, and I'm so excited to have you as we speak about, of all things, jet set leadership, navigating success on the move. And a lot of folks don't understand the implications of travel, both positive and negative, on leadership itself. But before we get into all that conversations, tell us a little bit about you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, how much time do we have? I'm just kidding. For me, it's really been, I would say my mom says I had my passport since I was about 9 months old. So I think just the jet set lifestyle and traveling has always been with me since I was a baby. Going back to Mexico, where my parents are from, and my grandparents, and visiting them since I was a baby. So basically, just traveling's been part of my life ever since I can remember. And it really also was beautiful because whenever I go back to Mexico, visit my relatives, my grandparents, it really instilled this beautiful part of our Mexican heritage and culture and language, Spanish language, which would always be spoken. And even to this day, my mother always speaks to me in Spanish, which I really admire because, it's something that I love speaking. Me encanta hablar español. I love being able to talk with as many people as I can, and it's beautiful.
And I echo that. Now my mom is passed now, but I just spent some time with family, and español es el idioma natural, right? Foundational language that we grew up with. And so, yes, I love to speak it as well, as although I don't get to as much as I can and should. Now, I have been traveling myself for many years, and a lot of it has been abroad. Now, in the military, that's where I came from in that travel. There's a lot of technicalities around safety, right? And travel safety, especially abroad, is a concern for many companies because of what they do. But what are some things that we can do to prioritize safety and well being while traveling?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's going to be based on the individual as they travel. For me, it's something that I've always kept in mind because, especially as a woman, it's something that I remember doing a study abroad in Italy when I was in college. I remember working in Australia after college, and I've lost count of how many solo trips I've done to this day. But every time I'm traveling, I think about just being very vigilant of my surroundings. For example, social media, I usually don't post in real time. Those are just some tips that I think is universal. But when I was traveling alone a lot, sometimes I would get asked, "Are you by yourself? Are you alone?" And of course, when I was in college, I was a little more naive, and I was like, "Yes, I'm here alone," and so. But with experience and just a little more, I guess, wisdom, I just wouldn't say if I was alone or not because I mean, why does anyone really need to know, right? I guess that's very personal. So I think it's subjective. It's just an individual, as individual travelers, something you could just be mindful of. And I think, for me, it's not just abroad. I think it's also wherever you go. So to me, travel is a mindset. So I really do believe we're travelers the moment we walk outside our front doors. So whether we go the same route to work or we do the same things, you never know what you'll see, who you'll meet. So I always also think about that. I have been followed before in broad daylight, and it was in New York City. It was in 8 a.m. So I just don't exclude anywhere. I'm vigilant wherever I go. It doesn't matter whether it's local, national, or international. And I think that's good to also keep in mind.
Absolutely, and great point there. That it doesn't necessarily need to be an abroad awareness. You need to be aware everywhere, especially when you are in uh, a profession that kind of lends you to be more in the public eye than others. But even still, look around you and listen to the news, folks. You will hear that you need to be vigilant while traveling, even in your local community. So, great tips there. Now, a
Thank
lot of companies are trying to figure out how to keep the team cohesion together, especially like trips to Vegas, right? These are things that kind of set people off on their own path. Some people like to, even if they travel in groups with a company, they like to go their own little thing and separate and enjoy that trip. But how can companies foster a sense of teamwork and cohesion among team members in a traveling work environment?
That is a great question. I guess it's going to depend on the company, but the most part when I travel, it's usually I meet people when I'm traveling or I'm on my own. So I would say it just depends on the company and how they want to travel together. And for the most part, I've seen a lot of groups, travelers, especially women travelers, for example. And for I've had really positive experiences. And for me, I will say that I love meeting people when I'm traveling from all different companies and organizations. I also speak at universities, and I have done mentorship for my alma mater, my college at Belmont University. So for me, it's also a way to give back. And I would say that we got to include students also in this conversation, not just companies, because students, whether they're in high school or college, they're watching us, they're going and attending these conferences, and they're really looking up to us as you know, seeing if this is a career they want to go to, and it's important for anyone in any industry to have that because I'm really grateful for in my career in my life, I've had so many amazing mentors, both in college, academia, and in professional. And I really do believe that mentorship and just being out there and being a optimistic, positive role model when we can and being supportive is important.
Absolutely. And not to dish out or weigh the student because there are a lot of travelers from a different perspective, not just the organizational corporate perspective, but I definitely, you mentioned studying abroad, right? In Italy. And so there's a lot of those travel. And, you know, when you're talking about teamwork, you're talking about spending time together, these are great opportunities to it happened to me in the Navy, right? We would go as a group and we had the best time fellowshipping together, enjoying the culture together, enjoying the scenes and the music and all of and the food, obviously,
Yeah.
together. And so those are ways that I've also seen things being fostered to create a better team.
Since the pandemic and a lot of work has started or more work has been done remotely, I would say that that has opened more opportunities for people to work while they're traveling or work from different environments. And I will say there's like you had mentioned, there's also internships, fellowships. There's a lot of opportunities for mid-career, early career, late career, and students to have, an experience to travel and work or study. And I think that's really important to also mention because travel is so diverse. It's got so many beautiful areas. I mean, we can talk about aviation, we can talk about STEM, we can talk about business travel, we can talk about leisure travel. There's so much to travel that it's just, for me, it's exciting when I hear or see of people who want to get involved in travel, hospitality, tourism, aviation. I will say too, I always say if I can go back in time, and I was a high school, college student, I really would have loved to have been a pilot in aviation, or honestly, I would have loved to have been an astronaut. Uh, and to me, I don't know, I just didn't see the women in these spaces. I know they were there. Ellen Ochoa, one of the first Hispanic women, or the first, I'm sorry, Hispanic woman to go to space, and she's still doing amazing work. And that's why a lot of what I do, Enrique, is as a reporter, is to bring these stories to people so that they can see, and hopefully it can be inspiring and empowering. Because I look back at myself, I said, "Wow, I didn't even know that was possible." Like, and it was, and it is, and it's just bringing that representation. I think, especially as women in Women's History Month, it if we can see more of us doing these great careers and work. And just, I think just 2 days ago, an all woman crew, I think it was United Airlines, did a flight from New Jersey and Florida. I did a route. So there are women in all these areas of STEM, aviation, travel, tourism, that are breaking glass ceilings, that are making history, that are just so amazing. And I think what a perfect time than Women's History Month than to talk about it and celebrate them, because maybe there's someone out there watching or listening that it can really shift the trajectory of their career, or I don't know. You never know who's watching or listening, right?
Absolutely. And this is why we do some of these shows, right? Some of these shows are to highlight the different things people are doing so that they can see someone in that field. There may be a high school, college student right now trying to figure out whether journalism is their thing, and they're looking for an hispana to look and say, "Look, there's one there. Look, she's doing it,"
And
and get inspiration from that.
and that's great, and that's so great you mentioned it, because just last week I had received an email from a high school student in Austin, and a professor who wants to interview me for her newspaper, the I guess the school newspaper, and she is Latina as well, and reached out to me, and I get so honored when I get these emails from students, and where they ask me to come speak to their class or their events, because it's a full circle moment for me. It means everything to me, and it's the most rewarding and part of what I do. I mean, I don't have children yet. I hope one day that time will come. But in the meantime, I have three young nieces, and they're like my babies, and they look up to Tia Janet, Auntie Jeannette. And every time I travel, I send them postcards, I bring them souvenirs, I FaceTime them, I show them about the world, and they see their tia on TV, or they think I'm famous, which is so cute. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm just doing what I love. And when I go back to my journey, Enrique, it's like people have gotten to know me maybe recently or over the past decade, but I would say, I'm going to write a book one day, because my journey is so long. It's so beautiful. But, it's been a long time of working behind the scenes and really planting the seeds and going to every travel conference for almost 10 years, getting mentorship, going back to school, getting classes, getting work, traveling. It's been a good 10 or 12 years now, I would say, of just working really hard behind the scenes to become and hopefully be a better version. So that I can be better, I could show up and give the best to the world. And so for me, it's been a long journey, but it's worth it, especially when students, or for example, even my nieces, look up to me and they want to travel, or they want to like go into this field. That's what makes it worthwhile for me, and so special, because I see younger Jeanette when she was younger, and that's what I would have wanted, right? That's what I would have wanted to see and have that. So if I could be or do anything for anyone, especially women, it's it's amazing.
Absolutely, I agree that from the perspective of a male, that it is a privilege to co-labor and champion the work that other women or women are doing across our nation and our world. It's inspiring to see a younger Latina hoping and actually aspiring to be the next. Hey, look at her. It's amazing. So kudos to you and great job on what you've done so far. Like I wanted to ask you, who has been the most pivotal and most inspirational person in your life?
Well, first and foremost, of course, I'm going to say my mom. I mean, what a shiro. She is just, of course, the most beautiful, strongest woman I've ever met. And she's, experienced some health issues over the past couple of years. And regardless of how she's feeling, her optimism and her mindset has been so inspiring to me and my siblings. Um, because she will say, I want to live my life to the fullest. I want to She loves to travel as well. She loves to celebrate, and she's always, instilled these great, you know, beliefs in myself, a support. She's always been a great role model as a woman, that you can be smart, you can be intelligent, you can travel, do all this great work. She had instilled in me a great work ethic. Also, something that I really love about her is her humility, her humbleness. I mean, for me, she always would say, Jeanette, you say please and thank you. You look everyone in the eyes. You always, just being a good person, and being very kind as well. And so those are just some of the few traits that I've learned from her. And I hope to embody that as well, because I just think she's been so inspirational for me and continues to be inspirational to me. On the professional side, I would say Samantha Brown, because I mean I remember being a teenager watching her on the Travel Channel and telling my mom, I'm going to do that. I'm going to host a travel show. I'm going to show people the world. And I saw a woman doing it, and it really inspired me and planted a seed in me from a very young age. And my mom said, yeah, absolutely. You can do that. You can do anything you want. And even I've met Samantha Brown, over the years. I've interviewed her as well. She's also been on my podcast I had. And so it's just a full circle moment. And I've had opportunities to tell her, thank you so much. Thank you for doing what you do. You inspired me to want to pursue this career in travel media and hosting, and really, like, thank you. And she's still doing travel shows now on PBS, and she's a mom, and she's just amazing. So anytime I can thank her, I do. Again, that just goes back to the representation of a woman, seeing a woman doing what I would love to do, or what another woman would like to do. It can be really powerful.
And that's amazing to have the opportunity to go back to someone that inspired you,
Yeah.
share some time with them, even in the field, right? To get some input and also say thanks. So I'm happy that you had that opportunity. Not too many people have it. So it is a great privilege to do so. Now, let's talk about how you develop professionally, because I know when you travel a lot, there's but so much time, right? And you're going from conference to event to show to family events, and there's a lot of travel there. So, how do you take that opportunity while traveling to develop yourself?
I mean, that is another really great, insightful question. I mean, for me, it's I've been traveling for a very long time now. In Again, my first international trip by myself was a study abroad in Italy, where I didn't know anyone, didn't know the language, but I guess I just got used to being out of my comfort zone, which is a beautiful way that travel can help you grow. And yeah, for me, it's just finding the balance. So if I'm traveling one week, the next week I will hopefully choose to stay home, stay inside, recharge, and then kind of trying to balance my trips out so I'm not constantly traveling. I have in the past years ago learned when I tried to do too much travel in 1 month. A couple of years ago I did a conference. I spoke at a conference in Romania. I went to an event in New York City, and then I went to Argentina in the same month. But I will say I was in my 20s, so maybe I had a little more energy then. But even then, I realized that I felt a little sick afterwards. My body was just so tired from all the different time zones, and just I wasn't as aware now how I can, keep up my sleep schedule, balance the different time zones. So that was an experience that taught me balance, right? Because traveling can be so fun, and I have friends and colleagues and peers who travel at their pilots, their flight attendants, and they travel almost daily. So I've also asked them for tips and how they adjust to all this travel, because there's a lot of people that are traveling for work daily, weekly, on the road, in the air, um, cruises, in the water, right, on the ocean and the seas. So I think it's something that I've learned, and I'm still learning along the way. I think a great thing that I love to emphasize is my growth mindset, always willing to learn and improve and grow, and constantly seeking mentorship as well as that I can give mentorship. But I think that's great when we're always, at that mindset, right? Like, I don't know everything about everything, but I would love to learn, and just having that open mindedness, even, I think, whatever stage in your career you are, I think that's a great quality to have.
Yeah, the mindset that is open is available to learn, right? And you have to give yourself that, especially in a traveling situation or lifestyle, because
Mhm.
you seldom get a lot of periods where you are actually home and just recharging and those things. But it's you mentioned mentorship, and that's very pivotal in terms of how easy you get to learn, because the experience of others will lend you a little extra to get you over the hump on things that you may not be ready to learn at the moment. So, great tip there. For those that are listening, young Latinas, young women that are, aspiring to become a thing, what would you suggest for them early on in their stage of life that they could start exploring now to make it a little easier down the road?
Yes, I would say, and it's something I would tell my younger self, is how important like self development mindset is, because and this also is, if seek mentorship. Is there someone out there doing what you would love to do, right? And then learn about them, contact them. I mean, this high school student reached out to me last week and wants to interview me for her newspaper. She just reached out, right, with her professor and other college students. I think that is an amazing trait, to be proactive, to seek out, an interview, even like you did, right? Like, you're very proactive. And I would say also keeping up with self development. What are you reading? Whose podcasts are you listening to? What are you doing on your free time? What are you watching? Right. This is all very impactful, um, for anyone, but I think as someone who's young in their career, starting out, I would also say seek a mentor, seek a coach, someone who can help give you wisdom and guidance. And I think a great mentor won't tell you what to do, but they will guide you, and they know and see your potential. And that is, all my mentors knew my heart and knew my potential and knew my work ethic, and they knew that I was in it for the long term. Like, I wasn't gonna do this just to have, I don't know, a couple years. No, this is a lifelong purpose. And also, I would say, know your why. Why do you do what you do? Why do you wanna do what you do? For me, I've always known my why. My why still is the same. It's, for me, building something that is going to be there for generations. For example, my nieces, young girls that are watching, students, you know, paving different ways, hopefully having some kind of inspiration for them, is my why, because I didn't see a lot of myself in these travel shows, for example, growing up. I mean, Sofia Vergara co-hosted a show, I believe it was Telemundo in the 90s. And I remember watching her co host this travel show, which also was very inspiring. But it wasn't enough at the time. And now we're 20 or so years later, and I see the needle moving forward in many spaces. And there's a lot of progress and a lot of greatness happening. But again, I would say, you know, read read more, you know, seek out more mentors, and if there's something you want to do and you don't see anyone doing it, go for it, try it. I mean, I don't know, I just these are all things I would tell my younger self.
And great tips for those that are starting out and trying to figure it out,
Mhm.
to have something to go by. And as we're celebrating this Women's History Month, I wanted to ask you, where do you see there's been a lot of improvements, right? There have been a lot of things that have changed throughout time. I think just yesterday I spoke about new masculinities at a conference myself. And
Oh,
as I was speaking about that, it spurned this question. Out of all the improvements you've seen in support of women and their endeavors, what has been one that has stuck out to you, to that you could say that that's a good one and was overdue?
wow, that is another good question. um I mean, I would say seeing more women in aviation, more women pilots, um, a lot of different organizations supporting women and diversity in aviation, scholarships. I mean, just the other day, an all flight woman crew made another historic flight, learning about space. Again, I would have loved, and I know it's never too late, but I would have loved to have been an astronaut. I really, really would have. I was able to go last year and see SpaceX Crew 7 take off at the Kennedy Space Center, which was such an amazing experience. And wow, it really impacted me in such a great way, because also there was a woman astronaut on there, and it was four astronauts and one was a woman, and they're still there, I believe, right now, at the International Space Station. But just getting to have that experience and seeing it in real life, and you know, watched it on TV many times, and that's something that even my dad and I shared, a love of space. And and so, you know, for me it was kind of like experiencing it kind of for the both of us. And I remember Enrique watching it was the takeoff was scheduled for 3 a.m. And I remember sitting down watching, and it had been scrubbed the day before. So it, you know, anything could happen. So I was like hoping I extended my trip and stay one more day, because I was already there and I didn't want to miss it. But, you know, it could be delayed for days. Who knew, right? But I remember they were doing the final countdown. It was about 3 a.m. and it was all dark. There was no light, and then you would hear, you know, the countdown, and it was like 10, 9, 8, 7, and lift off, and the sound of a rocket ship taking off was vibrating, and then it lit up the entire sky. And I was holding a phone, of course, but I was watching it, but I was trying to hold a phone. And I remembered, okay, just I knew it was going to be an amazing emotional experience, but like I was crying and I was holding the phone shaking, and I was just beyond memorized at what an experience in space and what we can do, you know, and all the progress we're making. And you know, I believe another crew they're going to have go around the moon, I think it's going to be Artemis 2 in a couple years, and they already picked the crew. So, and and there's a woman astronaut on that crew. They're going to try to go around the moon. So just learning about how not just on Earth and travel on Earth, but let's talk about travel to space and how all the progress that is being done there, and all the women that are part of these crews and that are working, for example, at NASA, or they're working for SpaceX, that are just doing amazing work. As you can tell, that gets me really excited because the little girl in me is like, oh my gosh, if I could do, I wish I could do that. But even if I can't do that, look, there's a woman in space right now at the International Space Station, and she is a mom as well. So it's like, it breaks all those limitations maybe that someone may have, especially as a woman, like, well, I'm a mom, I can't do. Yes, maybe you can, so for me it's so inspiring, and I was crying so much. And that is the beauty of travel. Travel, even if I'm not physically traveling, hearing stories, watching other people travel, and of course, space travel and space tourism is something that is being explored also by Virgin Atlantic, Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos, sorry. And so it's another area of travel that is exciting, and I'm just keeping my eyes on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just saw not the but the second Puerto Rican to hit space, but it's the fact of that you need to get into STEM. You have to. You have to get into those science, technology, math, all those engineering community in order to get into this major community called astronauts. And we need that as a backdrop for others to be inspired to get into it. So, congratulations to him. Congratulations to all the women that have made it into space. Now, talking about space, travel, and going abroad, what do you have coming up? And how can the listener get a hold of you? And where would you like for them to go to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will be between California and Nashville, and then I will be heading to Peru in April. So Peru will be the first time that I will visit. So I'm really excited about going there in April. In May, I'm going to be a part of several events. In Los Angeles and Orange County. So stay tuned for that. And also, where anyone can find me, of course, LinkedIn, Jeannette Ceja, Twitter, Jeannette Ceja, my website, www.jetsetwithjeanette.com, and my social media is at Jetset with Jeanette. And it's me. And if you do message me, I do respond. It might take a day or two because I might be traveling, but I do really appreciate everyone who messages me, follows me. Likewise, I'm such an admirer of so many people, and I like and I comment and I engage because I think it's amazing what so many people and women are doing in all of these different spaces, whether it's travel, STEM, media. So for me, it's beautiful, and I just love seeing people loving what they do. It makes me really happy. It's really fulfilling. And then also when people travel, it makes me really happy to see them travel.
Yeah, and as a traveler, I echo that because I love traveling. I love going different places. So, folks, we will have that as part of the show notes and video for you to get a hold of Jeanette, follow what she's doing, and ensure that you can continue to see what she is all about in the travel field. Today's episode is sponsored by Fantail Services and Superpass, which are powering our website and app, Southern Sweet and Sassy Coffee, The Outlier Project, and Duco. If you've enjoyed this episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to subscribe and let us know by leaving a comment. And we're always looking for new ideas and guests that we can add to our show. So if you know someone or have a topic that you would like covered or featured on the podcast or want to sponsor our show, we'd love to hear about it by emailing us at triadleadershipsolutions at gmail.com. And this podcast is brought to you by StreamYard, a browser based tool that lets you live stream to any platform and record a podcast in studio quality and even host webinars. We use it to record this podcast. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we like to end the show, success to you.